morning, everyone. Good morning. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I'd like to welcome our newcomers and sometime visitors and people who haven't been here for a bit. I'm excited and happy to be home. I got back last week after 2 weeks out of town, and so I'm going to talk about my trip. All this today is all about the trip, so you're going to get to see my vacation pictures and all that fun stuff, and hopefully get a good message too. That's part of my plan here. So we here at Centers for Spiritual Living, we're part of a much larger organization, and the theme for the month is ensuring the stewardship of our planet. And so there's a little bit of that in my talk today, but mostly it's going to be about this amazing journey of my life. I have on my vision board, one of the phrases it says on there is that my life is a powerfully moving spiritual adventure. And so, yeah, that's what it says. And so, my life is that. It is that. And this trip was certainly that. It was that for sure. So, we'll start with the first picture. Oh, my graphics got messed up. So, our anniversary was September 3rd, and Grady and I celebrated 31 years this year together. And our anniversary it's Labor Day weekend. It always coincides with some great thing that's going on. So we had been going to the Big Sky retreat, and I was really sad to not go there this year. But I had the opportunity to go to Northern California for the Centers for Spiritual Living annual retreat, which was held at a place called the Silomar, and it was amazing. So we flew over to San Jose, and then went to San Francisco and did the Redwoods. So that's Grady and I in front of a cathedral of redwood trees. It was really quite amazing. What's that? We look the same. We look the same. Almost. So there we are on the double-decker bus. The first part of the trip was flying into San Jose, and then we went to Oakland. Now let me tell you, there's some things you may not know about me. People that are close to me know me, that I have this kind of thing with control. And liking to know how things go, and how they're gonna run. So I'm one of those people that likes to plan out every day of the vacation. Right? I know we're going to the Redwoods, and I want to hit all of these different parks, and I want to make sure that I see everything there is to see. Can anyone relate to that? Oh, yes. So those things have to be planned out. So I didn't want to do the planning. I didn't intend to do the planning this time. I was leaving that to my husband, but I really didn't ask him. I kind of just thought he was going to. I did ask him and assumed he was going to do it, but of course he doesn't have that same interest that I have. So it wasn't getting done. So I did it, and I planned. We were going to be driving up the coast, and so we stayed at a different place every night, and that got to be a little bit stressful. And every time it felt like, boy, that was a really terrible idea to drive 7 hours and stop in one place and then pick up and drive the next day. I got angry at him about it. Because if he'd made the plan, then maybe he would have put a little more time in there or something. Anyway, it got to be a little contentious at places, here and there. There were those moments where it was supposed to be this great, relaxing time. And it really wasn't that for a lot of the vacation. So anyway, here we are on the double-decker bus in San Francisco, and of course we saw the Golden Gate Bridge, and that was a moment of great adventure. This story, it has intrigue, it has suspense, it has fear, it has drama, it has everything. The ride across the Golden Gate Bridge, that was like comedy, right? It was so cold and the wind was so hard. You couldn't even breathe. I was wanting to laugh, but just couldn't catch my breath even enough to laugh. It was hilarious. Wrong way. Okay, so.
I just kept screaming, it's August, for God's sakes.
Now, California, I've been to California before, but this is the most I really kind of hung out. And I find that California, and San Francisco in particular, is a very extreme place. It's just extreme. There is extreme beauty. There is extreme wealth. There is extreme poverty. And there's extreme diversity. This is a place you can go where there's mountains, there's beach, there's redwood forest, there's everything. And there's extreme crazy. And everything in between. And so I just thought that was fun. The weed maps, order order weed online, it's not a crime. We're definitely in California. This was in San Francisco at Chinatown, and you see the trolley, and that was great fun. And Grady took this picture. I don't know if you can see. I hope it's far enough. You can't see too much. But those gentlemen walking there, just bare ass naked, right down the street. Grady spared us the picture of the front view where they had these metallic cones on their private parts. It was very strange. Those are the painted ladies that are just, again, part of that wealth. It's just absolutely beautiful. And you walk just a couple of blocks and you're going from this amazing wealth to this terrible poverty and homeless people. It's just, it was, like I said, it was everything. So then we drove on up the coast to the redwood forest, which I tell you, if you have not been there, put it on your bucket list. It is just an incredible, incredible experience to be in the midst of these magnificent trees. There was a point where we were walking through this forest, and there's Grady. Can you see that little speck? That said, these trees grow to 360, 370 feet tall. It's incredible, and they're thousands of years old. There are some of these trees that have been around as long as the pyramids. And there was a place in the forest where we were walking, it was absolutely quiet. You would think with all of these trees there'd be insects, birds, something. It was absolutely quiet. And it was in those moments, walking through the forest or being on the beach, that I could just take that breath and relax and ah. So that's the root system of one of those trees. So picture these things 370 feet into the air, and their root system only goes about 10 feet into the ground. Only about 10 feet. And they get their moisture from the air. It's very, very foggy on that coast, and that's where they get their water from. They're not drawing it necessarily from the ground in their roots. It's just spectacular. I'll probably talk more about this. Yeah, extremely tall. There's Grady next to a fallen tree. And then the trees fall and other trees take root and grow out of them. It's really just incredible. The sad thing is that there's only of the original forest, old growth forest, there's only about 4% left. 4%, so 96% of these trees have been just mowed down over the years. Most of it happened around the turn of the century. A combination of greed and ignorance. Greed and ignorance. So that's my plug for our stewardship. We need to take care of these treasures. This is another fun thing. Okay, so I have also, I've shared before, a fear of heights. I love to travel and I love to be in places where there are mountains and high places, but it's really very terrifying for me. And I make myself do it because I'm always trying to expand my comfort zone, right? So this is a place, Trees of Mystery, and it was one of those gondola rides where you start at the top of the trees and it takes you down a mountainside. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to be brave, I'll do this, and I'm sure Grady wants to do it, so we said yes. It was the only thing we paid to do and at the forest, because all of this stuff is free. So, we paid, I forget, it doesn't even matter. Anyway, I'm thinking Grady wants to go on. He's thinking I want to go on, so we say yes. And we get in this gondola up 350 feet in the trees, and it's coming down, and we can't even look either direction. It's like, if I look over this way, I'm going to be sick. And the two of us are staring at each other. Missed the trees, missed everything. We're just looking at each other like, just breathe, honey, but don't rock the gondola. We get to the top, and they want you, you can get out and kind of look around and take pictures, and we're just gripped with fear, like, just get this sucker to the ground as quickly as possible.
It's not like every 50 yards for you.
For people to take pictures, I can see out the corner of my eye other people are taking pictures. I'm just like, please just don't move. So, and then we drive down the coast, which again is mountainous. And you look down and there's there's cliffs and there's water and there are these signs that say tsunami evacuation. And we have hurricanes here, but you have some warning. You have warning there. There's like tsunami evacuation, and you're thinking, oh God, I hope the big one doesn't hit while we're here. And there's places where there's rock slides, and when you're in the mountains, you know, they've got those places where if your brakes give way, that you can kind of, you know, go into the side. And I tell you, I'm worked up. I'm just like in fear and panic, and a little bit, you know. It would ease, and then it would come back, and it would ease off, and it would come back.
Who
And
was
then
driving?
Grady was driving.
In the mountains?
Grady was driving the mountains.
He was complaining.
Oh my gosh. And then the traffic, the California traffic, the freeways. Holy cow. You've got the on-ramps and the off-ramps are almost on top of each other. And there was this one place, you've got 6 lanes of traffic, and these people are driving crazy, they all know their ways. And you're getting on the ramp, and there's this, a light, a stoplight. Like, you have to actually stop before you get on the highway. It's crazy. How do you pick up enough speed to get going? Anyway, more stress, more stress. We drive down the coast, we're at the beach, it's just gorgeous, gorgeous. And that water is so beautiful, it's so cold, so cold. My fear, my panic, all of this kind of culminated in Monterey. Now, I think what I forgot to tell you, I didn't tell you this at the beginning. The other thing I like to do when I go away is I don't want to just go on vacation, like let's be practical here, you know. I had business to take care of at the same time. So the piece of business that I had that was pretty big was that I was up for my ordination. Now, in other denominations, as soon as you finish your ministerial program, you graduate school, whatever, you become ordained. In our denomination, you have to be in a pulpit for at least 3 years before you can go for the interview. And then there's 3 people sitting on this panel who review your reports and what's going on in your spiritual community, and they have a conversation with you, and they decide, are you of the consciousness, and are you ready to be an ordained minister? Because what that means is essentially you are married to your ministry. That's what it is, minister for life. It's like being tenured. So, most of my congregation knows this. I went for my first panel interview, first one, in October last year. And I didn't pass. I didn't pass. And it was at the beginning of another ministers gathering, right? So we're together at this gathering from Monday, like through Thursday or something like that. And I was all excited about my panel. I just knew I was going to pass. There were all kinds of wonderful synchronicities that were happening, and I'd just been offered a position working for a peace building center where I would be creating a peace building center here in Ocala as part of our outreach with the Center for Spiritual Living. Anyway, I went into my panel and told them all of this wonderful stuff, and they looked at me and were just like, not quite getting my vision. And there was a point during the questioning where I thought, holy cow, this isn't going really well. And then they said, we want you to panel again next year. Then I had to go through the rest of the week with these people after not passing my panel. And so there was a lot of tears, a lot of drama. Not only did I have to be there for the rest of the week, I was presenting a workshop the next day on peace building, of all things. So anyway, it was a painful experience, but I got through it, and it really was one of those moments where you find out who you are. You know, when I sat there in the audience, we did this visioning exercise, and so picture, well, it's a room bigger than this. There are probably 100 of us, 110 people, and the first visioning question is, what's your vision for your life and your time here and all of that? And I'm just sitting there in tears like, my vision? I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I just want to get on a plane, go home, pull the covers up over my head, and not look at anybody or see anybody. Forever. That was the first question. The second question was, what do you need to release to empower your vision? Oh, I got that. They gave us this little slip of paper with this magic paper that when you put it in water, it swirls away, so they only gave you a little bit of it because it's expensive. I'm thinking, I need like sheets of paper to tell you what I need to release right now, because I need to release anger. I need to release resentment. I need to release my disbelief. I need to release embarrassment. Now I've got to go home to my community and tell them I didn't pass, like all of this stuff. And I'm writing furiously, and I write all this thing on the slip of paper, and I put it in the bowl, and they swirl it away, and I come back and I sit in my seat between my two friends, and I'm still crying. And they say, what do you embrace? What do you need to embrace? And I sat there for about 30 seconds, and I said, I need to embrace my power. I need to embrace my power. Doesn't matter what just happened here. I do know who I am. I do know why I'm here. I know the work that I'm called to do. And this is of no consequence to me. Right in that, I got it, And then we had an opportunity to debrief. And I got to share with everybody at that point. Hey, all of you, for those of you who don't know me, dozen people paneled here today, and I'm the only one that didn't pass. And then I told them my experience, and I shared what I just shared with you. I stand in my power. I know who I am. I know why I'm here. And by the way, I'm doing a workshop tomorrow on peace building. And I really appreciate your prayers and your support, because I want to give you my best. And they wrapped me with such love that I was able to get through that experience. So, flash forward. We're now getting ready for this panel thing. Grady and I take the first week of our time together. He and I together celebrating our anniversary on this amazing trip. And then the next part of the trip was me in Monterey at Asilomar doing my panel. So the day before he leaves, we're out here in this beautiful, just beautiful area of Monterey. And I got triggered. And I think what it was going to use my debit card and having it declined. And I'm thinking, oh my God, so now I don't have access to my money. My husband's getting ready to go out of town. How am I going to pay for gas? How am I going to pay for food? I went through this spiral. And I had this I couldn't run because there was no place to go, and there's tsunami evacuation stuff everywhere. And then I'm feeling like, the ground is just going to open up underneath me at any moment. And I was in a serious, just panic. What do I do here? So anyway, got myself calmed down and and got Grady to the airport the next day. And then I have to get back on these California freeways. Picked up a friend at the airport who was also going on to the next stop at Asilomar. And I was at a point coming onto the road, and I was a little lost. Do I go left? Do I go right? Which is the best way to go? And I'm sitting there trying to make up my mind as a Mack truck was heading this way. I'm you better make up your mind right quick. And so I did, and got out of the way just in time and had to pull over. And again, I need to get myself together here. I need to just breathe. And so thankfully the other woman with me was a minister as well. We sat there, we breathed, collected ourselves, drove the rest of the way onto Asilomar. I parked the car, said, thank God I don't have to move for another 3 or 4 days. I'm just here. I'm not going to get in the car again. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just here. So now we get to this beautiful place, Asilomar, which has a lot of history for Centers for Spiritual Living. This movement began as something called religious science or science of mind. The founder was a man named Ernest Holmes. And Holmes, this was one of his favorite places. So for over 50 years, every year, people from Centers for Spiritual Living would get together at Asilomar and have this summer retreat. And so Asilomar, the retreat center itself, was designed by a woman, actually, the first female architect in the state of California. And she designed this place, and she called it Asilomar, which in Spanish, asilo means refuge. Mar is the sea. So it's the refuge by the sea. And so I can breathe a little bit. Except that I'm looking at the schedule and I'm realizing they have put panels at the end of the weekend. So it's Thursday, and I now have to go all the way, Thursday, all the way through Sunday, with this thing hanging over me. And I'm pissed off. How inconsiderate. of these people to not have the panel ahead of time so I could enjoy the rest of my weekend. The first session. Oh my goodness, it's so funny now. It wasn't then. That's Merrill Hall. That's where all of this stuff happened. That's the inside. There were like 500 of us, over 500 people from centers all over the place together at this retreat center. But the very first thing was a session in Merrill Hall where they were doing honorary doctorate degrees. And one of those honorary doctorates went to a minister named Temple Hayes. Some of you know Temple?
Yes.
Yeah. Temple started out as a Science of Mind minister. She's now in a Unity pulpit in St. Pete. And she's very big in New Thought. She's written books. She's very well known. So she was getting an honorary doctorate. And I'm sitting there still a little pissed off because there's some people that were on my panel that are in the audience. And Temple shares a story about Ernest Holmes that I'd never heard. As he was walking the grounds at Asilomar, he cut his arm. He had a nasty cut here on his forearm. And people are scrambling around to stop the bleeding and put some Band-Aids on it and cover it up and take care of him. And he said, no, let it be. Just let it be. Watch as Spirit heals. Because that's what Spirit does. Spirit heals everything. And I sat there and I heard those words. And I had a sense, a feeling of myself and the wound that I still had over not passing my panel. It felt like I had wounds on both forearms. And here I'd been just thinking, no matter how many people said over and over again, don't worry about it. You know you're going to pass this time. There wasn't a doubt in my mind the first time around. There was no question. I was completely blindsided. So y'all want to tell me that this can't happen again? That's bullshit. Because it happened, and it can happen again. And here I am with this wound, and in that moment of Temple sharing that story, I realized, you know what? It is a wound, and it did hurt. And I didn't want people going in there and digging it up again. I didn't know if I wanted to put myself through that experience. But I knew sitting there in that moment, Spirit heals all things. And I knew that I was there at the refuge by the sea so that I could heal the rest of what I needed to heal. And so, went through the rest of the weekend. Oh, that's with Karen Drucker and my friends, my dear, dear friends, Ed and George, who went through the ministerial program with me and were there to, they put a hood, they put actually a stole over you, and they were the folks that did that for me at my, when I passed my panel. That's the spoiler, I did pass. Anyway. So the retreat weekend was around this piece of, actually it wasn't writing, but Ernest Holmes spoke this. It was his last sermon before he passed away in 1959, and it's called The Sermon by the Sea. And there are some really beautiful pieces to this. Hang on. I want to read some of it to you. Because what they did was they broke up that Sermon by the Sea and took different pieces of it and gave those phrases to different ministers and people who would speak on that and what it meant to them and how these things showed up in their lives. So it starts, I can't read all of it. I'd make it available for all of you if you're interested in reading it. But Ernest Holmes said this in 1959. We have discovered a pearl of great price. We've discovered the rarest gem that has ever found setting in the intellect of the human race. It is complete simplicity, complete directness, freedom from fear and superstition about the unknown and about God. We have rediscovered that which the great, the good, the wise have sung about and thought about, and that is the imprisoned splendor within ourselves and within each other. And we know that we have direct contact with it. Whether we call it the Christ in us, or the Buddha, or the Atman, or just the Son of God, the living Spirit, makes no difference. You and I are witness to the divine fact that we have discovered an authority beyond our minds, and our minds use it. We are part of the evolution of human destiny. We are part of the unfoldment of divine intelligence in human form. And then he goes on, just talking about what it is, what this teaching is of religious science and what it is that we believe. And he says, find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his own soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, another exalted human being. And so different people spoke to different parts of this talk. And that gentleman there is a lovely, lovely Southern gentleman named Rafe Ellis. I'm not sure how old Rafe is, but he's probably about 60-something, 65 or something like that. Rafe started life as a little girl. He started his life as a little girl. And he knew that he was a man trapped in a female body when he was a child. And we're talking many, many, many years ago. And as he shared his story, what his life was and what he went through to just be himself, right? What horrors were brought on him by people who were possibly well-meaning. You know, we're gonna, don't worry about it, we're gonna make a girl out of you. Things like that. And I won't go into the details, but Rafe said, I think Rafe's piece of this was, find me one person who no longer has any fear of the universe, or of God, or of man, or of anything else, and you will have brought to me someone in whose presence we may sit, and fear shall vanish as the clouds before sunlight. You know, that man worked through heroin addiction and horrific, horrific trauma and abuse to come out the other side and be this amazing, amazing human being. This was Angelica McTaggart. And Angelica talked about the redwood trees, and she talked about the trees and the plants in Hawaii, and she talked about her work with shaman all over the world, and the living nature of nature, right? That it's all nature, and loves her cats and her animals, and was just another beautiful, beautiful person. And her quote was, find me one person who knows how to talk to God, really, in a real way. And I shall walk with him through the woods, and everything that seems inanimate will respond. The leaves of the trees will clap their hands, and the grass will grow soft under him. And I just feel like when that woman spoke, I want to walk in the forest with her and feel that.
Felt like the redwoods were alive. They really felt.
Yeah, just like we really, and it really resonated for me just having come out of that experience with the redwoods. It was just amazing. That is Mike. I can't think of his last name now. He was so fun. He calls himself a reformed redneck. So he spoke for all the straight white Southern males. Had been a construction worker before he found this teaching, and he talked about how it changed his life. And the first thing he did was apologize to women and the LGBT community and so many others for so many of the things that are happening now, the Me Too movement, all of this stuff. It was just amazing. And so he said, find me one person who could get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which we live. Then we have this character, Elisha. Elisha's got these giant gauges in his ears, and he's got this big mustache, and he's a little quirky. He's a little quirky. But he got on stage and he talked about the stuff that's happening in our world today, and he's like, it feels a little strange, which was a little strange coming from this strange little man. And he talked about his traumas and his dramas and his diagnoses, bipolar and schizophrenic and all of this stuff, and learning disabilities, and just again horrific abuse, and how he has come through it, and what this teaching has done for him in his life. And the thing he said that was so moving for me was when he realized, or having that sense of himself and understanding this connection with God, and knowing that Spirit runs in and around and through all things, so he must be God's stuff, right? that maybe, just maybe, all of those things that the world said were wrong with him was exactly what was right about him. And maybe he's not a schizophrenic, but maybe he's a shaman. It was so beautiful. What did he say? Gosh. Find me someone who's given all that he has to love without morbidity, and I will have found the lover of my soul. Why? Because he will have revealed to me the nature of God and proved to me the possibility of all human souls. Then we have Reverend Sunshine and Ty Andrews and Dr. Ken Gordon, who is just a love. He's the leader of this movement, our spiritual leader. And he created such a beautiful environment and feel and all that, I know Don and Norma know this, any of you who've been to retreats, or maybe you feel it when you're here, is this feeling of just deep, deep love and bliss and connection, right? And then we have this wonderful moment, and then you tell yourself, now I have to go out into the real world, right? It kind of feels like that, right? Well, Dr. Ken said, and it was so, I've really taken this on, this is the real world, right? That bliss, that love, that connection, that joy, when I look at you and I see the face of God, right? That's the real world. That's the real world. And that's what we're tasked with creating out here in the midst of the crazy. And so each one of these beautiful people, Sunshine is a homegirl from the Bronx, a Latina who spoke about love and just all of it. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful. Each one of these people said something that helped my healing, and I could just feel the stuff just falling off me and falling off and falling off until I knew by Sunday afternoon, I can go through this. And if I don't pass, well, I don't pass. I'll get over it. But I was clear. I felt good. One of my friends, my friend Ed, when I got there, he said, consider the possibility that it could be a joy. And at that point, back Thursday, I was like, Ed, I'm not there yet. Okay? Thanks for planting the seed, but I'm not there yet. By the time I got to my panel, it was a joy. And he also asked me, he says, now how has your relationship with your ministry changed through all of this? And I said, it really hasn't changed. It really hasn't changed. In fact, one of the people on my panel asked me, she said, do you feel like you were ready last year? I said, yeah. And she said, wrong answer. What do you mean it was the wrong answer? Well, you didn't pass, so obviously you weren't ready. I was like, no, I was ready. I was ready. My relationship, my feeling, my sense of myself and my ministry hasn't changed. If anything, it's a little bit deeper. But what changed through this experience was my relationship with the organization. Right? It was my relationship with the people that represent Centers for Spiritual Living. And amazing, amazing souls. And so I'm in love again. I'm in love again. And there I am, getting my stole. So it was a journey. And I'm breathing a lot easier there and now. And I thank you all. I thank this community. When I talk about how I was wrapped in love and how that helped me move through so much faster, it was in large part due to this community right here. That you all allowed me to do that. Yes, and I love you too. And I wanted to find a quote, an earnest quote, that would kind of sum this whole thing up for you. And I found something that was so deep, way more than a quote. That was just, again, a really beautiful story that speaks to this idea of rising when we get knocked down. So this comes from a book called Words That Heal Today. I don't even know if it's in print anymore. But this is where Ernest talks about Jesus and the teachings of Jesus. And so this is the last chapter on Life Everlasting. And he talks about Jesus when he was told that Lazarus had died, right? And people are concerned, and they're scrambling, and they want him to do something about it. And he tells them, your brother will rise again. You know, it says, what Ernest says is that it seemed like Jesus actually kind of waited to make sure that Lazarus was really, really dead, right? Like there's no hope. This thing is done, it's over, all right? And he says, your brother will rise again. So at this moment, he's going to prove it now. He says, at this supreme moment, he turned from all outward experiences and commanded those around him to take away the stone. He lifted up his soul and he said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I know that thou hearest me always. Ernest says, perhaps this is the perfect formula for us to use in resurrecting ourselves from past experiences. To roll away the stone, the block, the barrier, those so hard and so real facts that entomb us. The enlightened one, Jesus, didn't ask God to roll away the stone. No, this is an act that even God can't do for us. It's left for us to roll away the stones of unbelief and give thanks for the miracle that's about to happen. Right? We give thanks before the thing happens because we know it's on its way. And that makes it happen that much faster. We must remove the barriers that keep life from flowing through us. We cannot put the life there because while we are co-partners with life, we are not the creators of it. Right? We didn't create life, but we are part of that stream of life. Each and every one of us. We are spirit in expression. We are the beneficiaries of life. We are not its cause. We live because life is. We take life out, we don't put it in. And so back to, I thank thee that thou hast heard me and know that thou hearest always. Doubt and uncertainty are cast aside when we say that. There is a complete abandonment of the human to the divine, a willingness to look at the tomb of the past without fear. There is an exaltation of spirit through the realization of the divine presence, not outside, but inside the tomb. I think for me it was that moment of reckoning. You know, I've been in denial. I'm okay, everything's good, you know, of that wounding. And being able to look at it. And being able to know and to recognize that all things heal. And we don't have to do that. Right? You get a cut on your arm, you don't think about it. You don't say, let me make this thing heal. How do I do this? No, it heals on its own. Healing, wholeness are our default. It's our default. When there is dis-ease, when there is pain, when there is hurt, those are the blockages, the things for us to let go of. But we can find the truth in it. We don't have to shy from it. We don't have to be afraid of it. At the center of confusion, there is peace. At the center of doubt, there is certainty. And I would add, in the center of a storm, there is calm. Right? Whatever things you may be going through, remember that. At the center, there is calm. At the center of death, there is life. We have all made tombs for ourselves. We have bound ourselves by fear, by superstition and unbelief, and have lain down in our own self-created graves in a state of stupor, in a state of death. And yet outside our tombs of self-imprisonment, there's always a voice saying, arise and come forth. Always. Remember that.